homeopathy for first aid issues. Because I know we can always have that happen. One of my favorites that I really love for burns, any kind of burn, it could be a sunburn, it could be a radiation burn, it could be a heat burn, even something that happened inside, internal type of burn, is Cantharis. And Cantharis is made from the Spanish fly, and it is an amazing remedy. If my kids, we've been out boating or hiking or swimming or whatever, and we're starting to get sunburn, I like to give them Cantharis in a 30. Another option is belladonna, probably in a 30 as well, to help especially when it's really red and hot, and especially kind of when you're in the evening and you're not feeling so well. And I did want to mention that I'm going to be mentioning different remedies, and sometimes I'll be mentioning a remedy more than once. For example, arnica is an amazing remedy that can be used for various issues. So I know we already mentioned belladonna for fevers, but it's such an amazing medicine. This is such amazing medicine that each remedy can be used for various issues, some more than others. So I just want you not to be confused by that. Well, I thought you said it was for this, and it can be used for various issues. Another thing I wanted to mention is for any kind of head injury or spinal injury, neck, or if let's say you hit your finger with a hammer, or somebody got it crushed in a door, a great one for that is Hypericum. Anytime you're having nerve pain, so it could be nerve pain in your mouth related to your teeth, any other kind of, if you have an accident that it's involved, you're also having some bruising, but some nerve pain, or even some surgeries as as your nerves are starting to heal, Hypericum is a wonderful remedy for any of those kinds of issues. For black eyes, I know we mentioned Allium already for if you have a puncture wound. Allium can also kind of be like aconite. It can help the eye, aconite for the eye, so it can help with a black eye. And anytime that you deal with a fracture or injury, you do want to look at probably giving some arnica for the pain, often Hypericum, even Allium. But once you've gone to the hospital and you've checked with the doctor, if a bone needs to be set, wait till it's set. But after a bone is set, this one called symphytum it's actually, the plant is called bone knit. It actually starts bringing the bones and healing the bones together. I have two different stories related to this one. One, my mom fell and shattered her upper arm in her bones in 5 places. And we had several specialists say that she was going to have surgery, but we prayed and we gave her the protocol for broken bones, which included symphytum 200, and then we used some cell salts, which we'll talk about later, and then lots of nutrition, bone broth, all of that. And she was able to, it was able to heal enough where she didn't have to have surgery, which is amazing. I do know of another boy that ended up falling, and he ended up breaking his arm, wrist area right here, and they had to put pins in there. So once they had the pins in, they started giving him the arnica for the pain and Hypericum, but also symphytum. And he was healing so quickly. One, he didn't need any pain medication after all of that, even after the surgery, because he was using the homeopathy once they got him out into recovery. But he started healing so quickly. I guess it was like half the time that it was supposed to be, the pins were supposed to be in there, he told his mom, "Mom, it's hurting, it needs to come out." And so they took him to the doctor, and the doctor said, "I don't think it should be ready now." And they took x-rays, and they noticed that the bone had already healed faster than they expected. So they went ahead, and the doctor was surprised and took the pins out, and he was able to heal very quickly. So symphytum will help you with that healing time. And I know of at least 2 other people with ankle issues that this has helped heal when other ways were not helping. Okay, so for indigestion and or any kind of tummy issues, Some of the options are, we talked about a little bit about nux vomica, but if you're having actual food poisoning, or tummy issues where you're either vomiting or serious diarrhea, a couple things that you can do. One is Arsenicum album, and that remedy is wonderful. In a 30 or 200, depending on how severe the issue is. We had a family member that was having that was given food that they were allergic to, catfish, and they didn't realize it was catfish, otherwise they wouldn't have eaten it, and they ended up becoming very sick, and this had happened in the past, and vomiting and all that. So I went over, I was pretty scared, I was pretty new at the time, went to homeopathy, and every time this person would get sick, I would give them homeopathy, and they would get sick, and then they all of a sudden started turning around, and they started feeling a lot better. So Arsenicum is a wonderful one to have. For, like I said, diarrhea as well. Another one that's really good for vomiting is ipecaca, and even nausea, nux vomica, like car sickness is a great one for that. Where was the other one? Oh, one thing I wanted to mention is that we're going to go through various options as far as for coughs and colds in a little bit, but first I wanted to start with headaches. So headaches, often our colds and flus and all that start with a headache. So there is, if you go online, and actually I'll try to put this in my information, there's a wonderful graphic on headaches. And this one I love because it's really easy for anyone just to kind of get that visual picture of what the headache looks like, because there's all different kinds of headaches. I will tell you, headaches are tricky. They're tricky to treat with homeopathy sometimes, depending on the situation. So first of all, we would want to look in the Banerjee book and see if they have one for headaches, which I know they do. They have a headache migraine one. And especially for people that have get migraines, this is a great protocol. So Sepia 200, they recommend it in liquid, 1 dose in a week. And then if it's a acute issue happening right then, Picturum acidum 200 plus belladonna 3C, 1 dose every 30 minutes. And if that doesn't work, there's a second line one. And this is especially for people that get migraines and issues like that. This one is a little bit more for kind of more your everyday kind of headaches. So I'm just going to read kind of some of these options here. You're going to be hearing a lot of the same remedies. So aconite or aconitum. And that's more when you have a band-like, sudden, violent, bursting headache. And a lot of times it's in the forehead, but it can be band-like as well. And like I said, it doesn't have to be exactly as the picture, but this can kind of help you narrow it down, especially when you're working with a child. You can say, okay, what kind of headache is it? Because sometimes it's just, oh, my head hurts. And you're like, where does it hurt? What does it feel like? Because this isn't as easy as just, popping in aspirin. So we want to target what kind of homeopathic remedy we're going to use. Arnica is great for a bruised head or sore head, especially if you've hit it, or specific type of headaches, especially if there's been kind of jarring or injury. Belladonna is great for sudden, violent, throbbing, pounding headaches that really hurt. A lot of times that will come on as someone's getting sick. They'll usually have a hot face. They might feel flushed, or they might feel flushed or look flushed. Bryonia, that's one of my daughter's favorite remedies for headaches. She loves that one because it works fairly quickly for most of her headaches. So usually if it's, and the picture shows up here that it's kind of more in this area, but it can be stitching, tearing, bursting, or right-sided. And when we talk about colds and flus, we also talk about using Bryonia as well. So Bryonia can help that as it's, hitting your head, can help as you are starting to feel that sickness come on. And Bryonia is one of those remedies where you want to use it if you don't want to move. If you've ever had a headache and you just Want to lay there, close your eyes, and not move a single little bit. Bryonia is a good one for that. Bryonia can also be helpful. We talked about broken bones, but with broken bones where you don't want to move, you can be giving the other remedies for the pain. And Bryonia is going to be if you just don't want to move, like you have that. I'm right here because I broke my ribs before. So holding those ribs or whatever it might be. Okay, another headache remedy is Gelsemium, and this one is great for those that are feeling droopy and tired and drowsy and I just want to lay down. I feel something coming on. I don't know what's going on. Usually kids will be whining, crying. A lot of times it will be band-like as well, and then a lot of times here in the front, distressing, tender. It could be your neck and eyes, forehead, and scalp. And so anywhere in that area. Gelsemium is also a good one for anticipatory anxiety, like you're planning on doing something and you're concerned about it. Oh my goodness, I'm going to have to give a speech or speak to the public or do a video. Iris Versicolor is great for migraines as well and for blurred vision with nausea. And I just wanted to check if it was in this, if it was in the Banerjee one. It's not in this one, but I have seen it in some other protocols for those kind of headaches. Bryonia is great for if you start to get sinus issues, either, you know, from hay fever, or it could be a sinus infection or a cold. Bryonia is really good, as well as another one that we're going to talk about in just a minute. When you feel like your sinuses are clogged up, it just hurts to move your eyes. You can't get the mucus out of your head. Nux vomica is a great one, and we've talked about this one before, but especially when somebody's irritable, angry, upset, they've been pushing themselves too hard. It can be used for drinking too much alcohol, eating the wrong kind of foods, eating like really processed or sugary foods that are just making you feel not well, and just all over not feeling well, and a headache in that way. And then our last one is sanguinaria. And this is another one that's good for sinuses. So they talk about having the back of the head, bursting, nausea, dizziness as well. So I actually like that one when I'm starting to feel something coming on and I feel it in my sinuses, just to help me walk through that process. Okay, next we're going to go a little bit into flu and coughs and colds. So again, like I said, we want to make sure that we look in our book and see if there's a Banerjee protocol, and they do have a Banerjee protocol for influenza. Let me just find it. Okay, and this one they actually suggest Rhus tox with Bryonia. We just talked about Bryonia. Rhus tox in a 30, Bryonia in a 30, every 2 hours alternating. And for high temperature, belladonna 3. And for arsenicum for any nausea, arsenicum 3 for any nausea or vomiting, if that's coming on with the flu. So what you would do, like let's say you didn't have the nausea and vomiting, you wouldn't need to add in the arsenicum. If you didn't have a high temperature, you wouldn't need to add in the belladonna. So another Banerjee protocol is if you feel something coming on right away, you want to go grab your aconite 200 and Bryonia 30 and give that right away. And you can give those actually together at the same time in the same mouth. So usually we try to separate these out by about 10 minutes, but in this case you could take it in the same mouth. So if you feel something coming on, that's an option, or this other one here. With flus, one of the things I wanted to talk about is there are a couple ways that we can actually prevent them. One is taking Influenzinum, which is, I think there's a couple different companies that make it, but it's basically based on the flu that they're expecting for that year. So almost like some people would go in and get a jab for that, this would be another option. Instead of doing that, these often you can take monthly, so once a month, to kind of help prevent that during the flu and cold season. Some people take them every week just to kind of get their body. What you're doing is you're educating your body and saying, okay, this is what's out there, and this is the kind of flu that we're trying to work our immune system to kind of fight against. And then that way your body's a little more primed to kind of fight that without the side effects of the other the other option. And I like this because you just give it orally, and it's easy to purchase, and it's just, like I said, it's just a little bit easier than some of the other ways of looking at it. Okay, so through the flu, also we're going to be talking a little bit more about that in the cell salt section. So I'm going to focus a little bit more on coughs right now, because coughs can be challenging, okay? I'm not going to lie, headaches and coughs are really challenging. Let me make sure I've got the right note. Okay, so there's some different options. We talked about Bryonia is great for any kind of flu coming on. For the cough in particular, it's usually Bryonia, we call it Dryonia. So usually that dry cough, you're kind of, and it's not a lot coming up, and you don't want to move, okay? Aconite is one that comes on suddenly. A lot of times you have been exposed to the cold, been out in the cold in the wind, and kind of pushing your body, and you come back like, oh, I think I overdid it. I probably should have had a jacket on, and I didn't, or whatever it might be. Right now the weather is changing here, so it could be when the weather's changing and you get exposed to a little bit too quickly. And sometimes aconite can come with fear, like, oh no, this is about to come on me and hurt me. Another one that I love for coughs is antimonium tart. Can especially be helpful if the cough has gone deep into the chest, and especially if it has a lot of mucus and it sounds like a wet cough. This is one of them that I finally got for my husband when the first time we had COVID. I was trying to get a hold of it, and it was hard to get a hold of. And it can really help expel that phlegm and get that out. So that is one that I always have on hand. Phosphorus, I think I mentioned that one earlier, is another type of cough that I just used with my husband and with my son, because even with homeopathy, it doesn't mean we're never going to get sick, right? These are just kind of to support it, hopefully make it last less time, and for your body to get over it faster. So phosphorus, I found kind of more towards the end of a cold or flu, is really good when it's dry, croupy, and it gets worse when you're laying down, or worse when talking or laughing, which seems to be something that happens a lot in our house. Start talking or laughing too much. We talked about Hepa sulf as far as for other kinds of infections, or even for, like I said, acne or styes. Hepa sulf is great for, like I said, when sore throats come on, but also for really coughs that really hurt, like that's kind of sound like that saw, that kind of thing. And when it's chesty and wet, and when other ones aren't working, Hepa sulf is a really good one I like to go to, especially if I feel like I'm getting an infection, or somebody's getting an infection, or we're getting close to that. Because like I said, I have dealt with so many upper respiratory infections my whole life. I tend to get very fearful when I start to get sick. And thankfully, with using homeopathy, I have not had them go to my chest since I've started using homeopathy. Not that it's never going to happen, because we do get sick, but this can really help prevent that, and that was always scary for me. Ipecac is another one. We talked about that one with throwing up, but this one can also be helpful for a dry cough, and especially one that, have you ever had they cough, and then it's almost like they're gagging at the end? Yes, that has a horrible sound, but this Ipecac is a good one for that. This one can even be used in pregnancy when you are having morning sickness, if you're having that gagging feeling. And one other one I'll just mention for that morning sickness is tobacum, which is actually made from tobacco. We talk about here's like, and this one, like if you were to smoke cigarettes or something for the first time, you'd feel really nauseous and sick. That one is great for morning sickness. Another one is Drosera, which it sounds kind of like a bark, and that one can be spasmodic and kind of a deep cough. as well. So it can be used actually for whooping cough, which I know is something that's been going around more recently. And this one is, you can notice it because they get worse when they lie down. They actually get worse, and all that coughing gets worse and worse. So they almost don't want to lie down. They don't want to sleep sometimes. Another one is pulsatilla, and we talked about that with hormones, but this one is great for certain kind of coughs, especially if they've got a lot of like a gunky green yellow mucus that you can tell it's they're not doing well, right? They might be tearful, clingy, a lot of snot and rattling kind of in your chest, and like, have you ever seen kids with just that whole bunch of stuff coming out of their nose right there? That one might be a good one to look at. Another one is, I talked a little bit about calcarea carbonica as far as it being very helpful for preventing illnesses, especially if you have a low immune system. So traditionally, I suggest taking that one, Calc Carb 200, every other day for those that have a low immune system and tend to catch colds really easily. And that would be for usually for someone who's growing already, or has grown in a 200. If it's a child that's still growing, a lot of times we say Calc Carb 30 every day, one time a day. But there's also a cold or cough that you could use a Calc Carb for, and that's when they feel like there's like a feather in their throat when they're coughing, and they're having a hard time. They're breathing when they're coughing and breathing, and they tend to perspire a lot, and like I said, tend to just be prone to having a lot of colds. That's one of my remedies. I love that one. Another one is Allium cepa, and we talked about that at the beginning when we talked about red onion and how like cures like with an onion. So a lot of times, sometime during a cold or flu, you might have the streamy eyes, just watery, and it's hard to open and shut them, and streaming nose, and you might even get some of that burning right there. That's a good one for Allium cepa. Let me see if there's any other ones that I want to go over. And also Arsenicum is another good one for a dry cough that's relentless and burning pain, and worse in wet weather, especially after midnight. So the thing, there's a lot of different options, and I'll try to include some information so that it can help, you can help narrow it down. And I always recommend, like, if you're going through a cough, look up videos. There's videos where they actually do the coughs for you. They show you is this kind of remedy, you know. There's a guy from India, a doctor from India, who does that. You can search that way, or you can search at the type of cough and homeopathic remedies, because when you're in the middle of that, you want to be able to narrow it down and get some good remedies for whoever is dealing with this. Again, we try to do 3 or 4 doses. If it doesn't seem to be helping or improving at all, then you want to go on to something else. Okay, let's go on to allergies. Allergies are so much fun, right? I dealt with them for so many years. I had food allergies and hay fever type allergies that would end up making me sick. So allergies is something that's near and dear to my heart, and I've tried to, anytime you have an issue in your family, I would kind of rate it like, what is the most important issue in our family? What is the number one? If I were to target one issue, what would it be? For me, when I started down this journey with homeopathy and really getting serious about it, for me, it was my hay fever allergies. So I started with the Calc Carb, but that one took a while. That was building up my immune system. So if I was there having a sneezing attack, Calc Carb wasn't going to help me very much, right? It might a little bit, but it wasn't going to help me very much. But what I learned is I went and looked and researched, what can I get that's going to help my allergies? And I purchased and bought all of those so that I would have them on hand, the ones that I felt like were related to me. For example, one of them that I love is Wythia, and that's with a W, not with a Y, but Wythia. And that one is good for extreme itchy in the nose, palate, and throat, and very annoying cough or sneeze. Have you ever had the feeling like, oh my gosh, I just want to, you just try to take your tongue and you're like clucking and you're like trying to itch your throat? and your inside of your ears are itchy, your eyes are itchy. That was me almost every day. Didn't matter what the season was, especially if I was around, like I said, trees were issues. Christmas was always so hard with live trees. So that itching, clicking, and I've used this one even just a few weeks ago because I was starting to feel that. So I just take a dose of that. Most of these you're going to do in a 30 to kind of take care of that acute issue. So that's one I recommend for that one. The other things, I used to get sneezing attacks, spasmodic sneezing. I would go outside, take care of my chickens, go pet horses, pet my dog, be outside, do a little jog, and then come back in and achoo, 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 and I would just start grabbing the tissues, right? So the other one that I love is Sabadilla. It is great for spasmodic sneezing that you can't stop, and I just like be blowing my nose. I go through a lot less tissues now that I've used homeopathy. It's wonderful, but we still have to use some. But I love that one. Another one is euphrasia. So especially when you get those itchy, watery eyes, for me, I didn't just get the itchy eyes. It was just like itchy everywhere. But this one is great for with irritated eyes, even nasal discharge, sneezing, and certain specific types of headaches, especially when related to allergies. And then Allium cepa, we're going to come back to that one. That one's great for allergies too. That's very similar to when you're cutting that onion, right? The itchy eyes that are just draining in the nose and everything. And especially if your eustachian tubes are involved. And like I said, I used to have a lot of problems where my sinuses, I would get sinus infections and all of that. So was there another one I wanted to mention? And also there are combination remedies that boron makes, allergy calm or sinus calm. And if you don't know where to start, just go get that combination. And then what I suggest is reading on the back of the box. Let me see if I have an example over here. Reading on the back of the box and see what the different remedies are in that box, and see if you can narrow it down. Like maybe they have Allium cepa in there. Maybe it's Allium cepa. Read up on Allium cepa in your Materia Medica and see if that's the one that might be helping. And it might help you narrow it down and target it a little bit better. But again, you can just stay with Allergy Calm if that one helps, or Cold Calm, whatever it might be with whatever you're dealing with. So I wanted to talk a little bit about food allergies. So I dealt with food allergies when I was, I think, around 11. They figured out that I had dairy allergies, which was making my mucus issue worse, and I was having these reoccurring infections. And so the doctor said, okay, go off of dairy for 3 months and see if you're better. Well, it was amazing. I could actually taste things again. Food became where I had either loved it or hated it. Got to the point I actually became a vegetarian for a while because I just couldn't handle the taste of the meat. I'd never tasted it like that. It was so strong once I got off of the dairy. But there is actually homeopathy that can help you get over those dairy or food issues. I also had pork issues from the time I was little. I remember being in school, and at lunch they would give pork sometimes, and I didn't know what was wrong. But all of a sudden I'd be laying on the floor. Everybody else would be standing up and doing the pledge or a game or whatever, and I'd be laying on the floor in school because I was in so much pain. And so for years, I was so fearful going to potlucks because I didn't know if there was pork in something, and I would react to it. So pork was very scary for me. So I would run around, okay, who made that dish? Is there pork? Or try to get my husband to try it, see, does that taste like pork or is it ground beef? And so I tried very hard to stay away. So what I learned is that there's homeopathy that can help heal that. I'm not going to say it's guaranteed. I also dealt with some peanut allergies where it would make my throat itchy, and I started having more and more peanut allergies, and it was really scary because I worked with kids, and I remember one time they weren't supposed to bring in peanuts, but somebody opened up their snack, and next thing I know, I was so sick I had to leave the room because just the smell. I wasn't even eating it, but the peanut allergen was in the air. So what I suggest trying is Bovista 200, And that one I did for over a year. And the reason is because that peanut allergy was kind of scary for me. And I wanted to make sure that I was healing that area. And so I did it for a year, and then I started trying some pork. And the pork was okay. I could have the pork. That was huge, like a big step for me. And then I was also able to, like I said, add in the peanuts. Again, if you have a life-threatening issue, I would work with your doctor or with someone else just to make sure. If it's something where you have to go to, if you ingest it, then I would suggest, either being next to it before trying the food and testing it to see, a little tiny bite, is that going to cause an issue? Or for example, with dairy, Athusa is the one to help with any kind of dairy issues. For me, it made me have more mucus and cold. Some people, it causes intestinal distress. It can cause behavioral issues in kids, but that Athusa is amazing for helping with the dairy. So I'm still pretty careful, like I don't just go have a ton of ice cream, especially in the colder months, because for years I dealt with getting colds if I did that. But I can now have stuff if I want it and not react, and that is huge. So anyway, I hope this was helpful for you. And so for your action item, I want you to write down if there's any particular issues that your family deals with. If it's allergies, I want you to come up with some options for allergies that I talked about. If it's colds and flus, I mean, everybody's going to have a flu at some point, right? So if just having some options and making sure that you either get a kit that covers those options or issues, or that you start just, okay, this is my list. I'm going to go down in this priority out of, however many family members you have, including the dog, that you determine what is the most important issues that I should work on per either person, or even, like I said, for your animals. At one point, I had a huge spreadsheet that I was keeping for myself, for my kids, for my mom because she was here, and even for my dog, just trying to figure out like what I needed to give to each person to get them moving in the right direction. And the beautiful thing is, once you train them, you can let them take, if they're old enough, obviously if they're too young, that's not going to work, but once they're old enough, they can take that responsibility for their own health. Pass that information on to them. Listen to podcasts, listen to trainings with them, teach them, because it's only going to help them. Obviously, with your pets, you're going to have to give it to them. But the important piece is your goal is to get that area to improve. So you want to see it less frequently. And for example, like if you have allergies, attacks every day, try to get that less often. You want the duration to be less. And you want to have the pain level to be decreased as well, or the issue. So I try to look at it from a scale of 1 to 10. So my allergies were probably an 8, a 7 to 9 a lot of times. I've been able to get it to where I had a little bit of allergies this fall, but I've been able to get it to where like it's a 1 to 3. So it's manageable, it's improved. Maybe a couple times I was dealing with a 4 or 5. So get those numbers down. Ask whoever you're working with, what would you give this? With all those issues you have going on, how often are you having them? What's the frequency? Can we get that pain or that discomfort level down? If it's a skin issue, can we take a picture of it, or any kind of issue? Can we take a picture of it and see if we're having progress? So that's our goal, is to see if we can have progress and we're moving in the right direction. And I really believe with homeopathy, it doesn't cure everything. I'm not saying that at all, but it can help improve so many different issues, and it doesn't have the side effects. Okay, thank you.